Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Battle Brothers Season 3. As today, we're really just going wild. I mean, honestly, not much else to say. We've still got 2 more Goblin camps on our to-do list. And aside from that, we're really just seeing what we can find out here. We do have a fair bit of fighting ahead of us, so I'm going to try to keep things moving, starting with the Ambusher's Hideout. Yeah, there we go. Run-of-the-mill gobos with 1 overseer on site. With the Goblin patrol dispatched, the raiders soon descended upon the nearby Goblin fort, under cover of night. Though, as always, they could only get so close before the keen-eared goblins finally heard them coming. At which point the raiders broke out into a sprint, trying to use the tree line and the low rises as cover. Carefully eyeing the gaps in the makeshift fort's defenses to calculate the best angles of approach. Arrow impaled an overambitious ambusher through the abdomen. And Rassel rushed in. First face-to-face contact as he pinned down a skirmisher. Diego moving in on north, laying eyes on the Goblin overseer, watching from his cozy nook in the northwest corner of the fort. The rest of the raiders rushed in, knowing it was in their best interest to close the gap as quickly as possible. Though the overseer's position was slightly problematic since there were no easy approaches on his surprisingly well fortified firing position. And then the nets began to fly, Drak finding himself entangled. A goblin bearing down with wickedly notched blade. And the overseer, confidence apparently buoyed by this initial pushback, emerged from hiding. Though promptly given pause as Mark blasted limbs off multiple defenders. Bowman took aim. Oh my goodness. A flurry of shots. 3 goblins fell dead, each shot precisely through the heart. Their brethren surprisingly uncowed behind them. Maybe they just didn't like those guys. Or perhaps it had just happened so quickly they hadn't even registered that their kin were dead. Regardless, the raiders surged forward, pressing through the new openings in the enemy line. Seymore shearing the head off an enemy skirmisher, blade ending buried in another's bicep. Seymore casually crushed another, opening a path for Giannis to rush in. Mal pushing up on south, his mere presence breaking yet one more. Drakiith shucked off his net as Random crushed the one-armed Gobbo. And Rook pushed up to the wall, eyeing the diminutive figures scurrying beyond. A sharp crack and twang of the Goblin Overseer's oversized crossbow. A fist-sized bolt clattered off Seymour's faceplate, barely turned aside, denting the metal and tearing a gap in his cheek so deep that teeth peeked through. Whew, thank goodness Seymour's such a tank. Headshot from a heavy crossbow, that's instant death for lesser bros. The raiders redoubled their efforts to push through, Rassel smashing a skirmisher's fingers. Giannis decapitating another desperate defender. And the Overseer, eyeing his rapidly crumbling defensive line, started easing backward, perhaps realizing that this fort was soon to fall. Though he had done his part, Seymore was effectively sidelined, even if he had essentially spent a dozen goblin lives, just to inflict that temporary setback. The last few defenders fell, one neath Cetrus's hammer, another neath Random's flail. Rook rushed in, eyes locked on the Overseer himself. Drakiith close behind. And unsurprisingly, the malevolent military leader quickly fell back, fading into the darkness. Not sure we'll catch that one. Another skirmisher broke and ran. Though as usual, it was difficult to run against the wind. Drak disarmed the last defender. Whilst Rassel tossed another snarl into the goblin's escape plans. And the Goblin Overseer was back in sight. Though perhaps sicking doggos on him isn't the best idea. He is still combat capable. He could easily kill them before we can intervene. Might just be best to let that one go. He's pretty close to map edge anyway. Which I hate to do, but you know, just how it goes sometimes. Another gobbo fell. Rassel shouting words of approval to the cur currently crushing its throat. And the final skirmisher angled away from the wind, once again trying to make a vain attempt at escape. Yet everywhere he looked, there were yet more raiders lying in wait. Okay, yeah, the Overseer's gone. He'll bail beginning of next round. No way the doggos get to him. That is a shame. Maybe if I'd been more aggressive with Diego. Pushed him right through the second we had an opening in the line. Always risky, though, you know, trying to push past combat-capable foes. A shot from Mark caught the last cowardly combatant in the shoulder, spinning the diminutive figure about, his jagged pike flailing out wildly in a vain effort to keep Rook at bay. Partial success. Rook's return jab did go wide. But Cetrus's did not. A swift strike and the goblin's head burst like a melon, the body teetering and then toppling to the ground. And the raiders swiftly rolled the camp, keeping a wary eye out for the one escaped officer. I think Wind has his scent, Diego offered, as he cast his gaze about the camp's perimeter. I think we might be able to track him down. There was murmuring amongst the ranks, a number of scattered nods. Few of the raiders were comfortable with leaving that particular loose end out in the wild, especially not after the goblin had single-handedly almost killed one of their own. Seymore slinking off to the sidelines, sullenly holding blood-stained gauze to his scarred face. The captain gave a nod, and Rax stepped forth, his heavy armor slick with some unusual sheen. We chase. We kill. No survivors. and the raiders set off once more, carving a path through the aptly named Greenmere. Until, inevitably, another target fell into their view. Arrow peered at the crude orc camp, then called back over his shoulder. "You sure this is where wind is pointing us? Goblins and orcs don't normally mix. Strange, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but why would an overseer come to an orc camp?" And Rook stood off to one side, the company banner kicking and pitching in the wind, his eyes squinted and calculating, but his face otherwise obscured neath the intimidating guise of his diviner's cowl. "Take the camp. I'm curious to see what we might find." And Rax nodded sharply in response, a slight sodden squish as he pivoted about, heavy plate armor rattling round his massive frame. The assault had already begun. Those orcs were already dead. The rest of the raiders were really just along for the ride. Well, perhaps a bit of an overstatement, but, you know. The orcs wasted no time in moving to intercept the intruders in their midst. Rook stepping up, greeting the first with a pike through the neck, then jerking his head, gesturing for the rest of the raiders to move in. Zarmal darted round on North. Blade sunk hilt deep in an unwary orc's chest. Val finished the first foe, hitting him so hard a spike drove straight through and impaled the orc behind. Trip slipped in, moving to block the burlier orc warriors. Arrow arching an enemy's arches. Alois gave the advancing horde pause, and Rax finally rushed in. Movements unnaturally smooth, his armor unnaturally lubricated. And thus the battle began in earnest. The most dangerous foes gathered on south. Zarmal repeatedly perforated some poor fool. Drak lopping another's head off. Trip found slightly more success with his second assault, an orc warrior panicking as his armor was bypassed. Val disarmed another incoming aggressor. Rax snarling as his own attack was somehow turned aside. Though Alois was quick to remove the obstacle. Another blistering blast. The intervening orc smeared across the landscape. And so the killing continued. One dying neath Rook's pike. Another to Bowman's arrows. Trip grunted, stunned by a sudden assault, while Cetrus swept the leg out from neath the last defender on North. Another orc warrior moved in, his arrival punctuated by the irritated Rax all but eviscerating another orc on the line. Though anger far from sated, His axe arced again, cleaving through an orc young, ending its sharp arc in another warrior's faceplate. Val repositions. Drak tears through a target's torso. Alois guns down another injured orc. And the fight is all but won. Random crushing one. Diego impaling another. Rassel runs about, cutting off an orc warrior's escape. Cetrus doing likewise at center. The second to last is butchered as he tries to break away. And the raiders swiftly surround the last. With Rassel claiming the kill. Flawless victory. Not much loot to show for it, but we'll take what we got. Honestly, that's fine. That leaves plenty of room for whatever comes next, since obviously we're not done out here just yet. We still need to take down at least one more goblin camp. Not much shuffling needed, but let's go ahead and rotate in some fresh blood. And on we go. Hey, there we go. Oh boy. And that's actually a bit of a fight, too. Zatok's Thumb. Some ambushers, many skirmishers. An overseer and a shaman. Also midday, so no cover of darkness, but I think we'll manage. With the orc camp in their rear view, the raiders continued following the trail of the elusive overseer. And not much farther along, they soon spied a much more imposing goblin fort. Set snugly into the tree line, even more heavily guarded than the last. Right down to the pustulant prestidigitator manning the palisades. They clearly knew the raiders were coming, and thus the company made no secret of its approach, instead rushing in, trying to use the tree line as cover. A scattering of skirmishers moving up on their flanks, seeking to pincer these pesky pursuers. The greenskin guards following the shrill barked commands of their harried hierarch. Rassel eyed the approach, then angled southeast. Just in time, too. A sudden eruption of unnatural agriculture engulfing the southern line. A barrage of projectiles began to pelt the raider advance.
Ah, not the bees, Tommy cried, flailing his arms about. And Rassel made his move, closing the rest of the gap, clouting a goblin skirmisher upside the skull, though quickly finding himself entangled in turn. Diego darts in on north, Random on south, smashing the stunned scoundrel. Mal rushes in, backing Drax's charge, double teaming the front gate guard, as Giannis peels off to one side. The Overseer scowls, beady eyes narrowed as he surveys the battlefield, trying to pick out the most ideal targets. A cone of shrapnel tore through the goblin center line, limbs lacerated and faces flayed. But the goblin overseer kept his men on task, the sharp crack of a barbed whip ensuring that even the most maimed would continue to fight, right up until their dying breath. Rassel found himself roped again, as did Diego. Giannis as well, though they were still doing a good job of holding the flanks. The shaman continued its futile efforts to hold the raiders at bay. But another blast on center, and half their line collapsed. The shieldmen shrugged their way free once more. Rook likewise freeing himself in Seymore. Come on now, guys. We don't have all day. Let's start racking up those kills. Mal pushed in, finally pinning that squirrely overseer down. "This the same guy we fought last time?" he shouted back over his shoulder. "Doesn't matter," Seymore shouted back, rushing in with his sword ready. "We're killing him either way." "Yeah, but just like, for closure and junk," Mal muttered half-heartedly. "But I suppose it don't matter much in the end. There's always going to be more goblins." Unable to pick out precise targets through the swarm flying in his face, Tommy hurled a net instead, trusting the ropes to entangle their arch-foe's angular armor. the raider advance stalled once more. More grasping roots gushing from the ground. Yeah, I guess I should have seen that one coming. Fair enough. A second blast and the rest of the center line scattered across the grass. The Overseer now stood alone, his few remaining fellows seemingly uneager to rush to his aid. Diego dissuaded a ne'er-do-well on north. Cetrus smashing another a split second later. Mal gleefully carved into the now entangled Overseer, cleaver cutting halfway through his neck. Random finally broke the deadlock on south, crushing one goblin, dissuading another. And Rook moved in. As Giannis started breaking the deadlock on north as well. Ooh. And despite Mal doing the heavy lifting, Sigmar stole the kill. The Overseer tearing his way out of his net, only to find himself impaled on the former militiaman's massive blade. And that was that. With their craven commander's downfall, the rest of the rank and file swiftly lost their will to fight. A few still striking half-heartedly out at the raiders that had overrun their line, but most simply now focused on fleeing. Drac stumbled through the gate, slightly slowed by the toxin running through his veins. As Sigmar swept the northern wall. Rassel crushed another on south. Rook beginning the assault on the now shuddering shaman. And Random rushed through, intent on cutting off that deviant druid's decampment. The caster quickly clambered away. Tommy punching a hole, clearing a path for pursuit. Diego stabbed a badly bleeding belligerent through the face. The blood-gushing Gabo getting off a few more awkward swings before finally bleeding out. Sigmar slaughtered the last ambusher on north, then moved to intercept. Mal splitting off to instead clear the northern line. Rassel rushed through the rancid gas, but found himself too winded to continue pursuit. So Random did it instead. Yeah, we're gonna need the doggos on this. Ooh, well, maybe not for that one. That guy's good as gone. But I think we can still get the shaman. Alright, let's get wind in the mix. Yeah, that's fine. Knew that was coming. Just want him on the field. We also need warrior and snarler. Man, see, yeah, this is really the sort of situation where I wish we had gone for Pathfinder. But these guys are actually broken, so it is safe to use the doggos. Mal finished the last on north. And the raiders began to converge. Sights set on the final two. Yeah, that's looking good there. Right, might have to skip ahead a bit on this one. They're not making it easy on us. Which, you know, fair game. I guess I really wouldn't want to roll over and die either. Well, scratch that. Yeah, we would have had him if he hadn't recovered his morale that second to last turn. But you know what? We'll take what we got. Minimal injuries. Level up for Giannis. Our second spiked impaler. Though sadly no famed items. But I would say ample loot. Yeah. With a little room left over for one more potential outpost. Though, more importantly, ambition complete. Let's go ahead and tag this stuff for repair, get that level up taken care of, and then we'll just kind of wander a bit. Maybe start angling back towards the nearest town until that event pops. Honestly, whatever comes after that is ultimately going to come down to what our next ambition ends up being. I've kind of got my sights set on the icy cave up north. I feel like we're in pretty good shape to take that one down. As for Giannis, not much to say there. We'll obviously take the melee, we'll take the resolve. And I guess the initiative. Would be a shame to waste a full +5. We do need to bump his fatigue, though. I want to get him in some better armor. We've got plenty of options to choose from at this point. We've just got to get him trained up enough to actually wear one. And there we go. The men are scattered across the battlefield, still breathing heavily after a hard fight. As you survey the ground, so do King's Rook the Sergeant and Mark Giemza scour it for valuables. We advance, they retreat. We fall back, they harry us. Fire a volley of arrows, and they take cover. A shield wall is pricked through with poisoned blades, and at a charge they scatter like bugs. Those damn things they fling at you will fly through my dreams and nights to come. Mark pokes a dead goblin with his weapon, and, satisfied that it is very much dead indeed, kneels down to take a closer look at its belongings. Yeah, but the more bitter the fight, the sweeter the victory. He stands up and meets King's Rook the Sergeant's gaze. The more bitter the fight, the more alive I feel. Come on, Sarge. They slowly continue on to join up with the rest of the men, stopping here and there to look for things worth a crown or two, when next the company makes its way to a city. Which nets us renown, a bunch of good mood, and our Goblin trophy, which I believe is the last of the species-specific trophies we needed. Since I believe we already have the undead, the orc, and I guess that's it. I guess it's just those 3. You'd really kind of expect there to be one for like bandits or barbarians or maybe nomads. Not sure who this one will go to. It provides immunity to nets and grasping vines, which is very useful, but also takes the hotly contested next slot. You know, I would give it to Seymore, but that would essentially mean unequipping warrior, and I wouldn't want to separate those 2. Rax already has the stun resistance. Mal's got the doubled resolve versus mind control, which I don't... Yeah, I guess he doesn't really need anymore. He's up to 50. We could toss him the Goblin Ear Trophy. Is there anyone else who needs the Undead Trophy more? Yeah, well, I'll figure it out. You know what? Maybe we'll just go ahead and toss that to random. I would dread getting on the wrong side of that flail, but I'll give it a bit more thought off screen. Honestly, I should probably unequip all of our next slot items and just sort of redistribute them a bit more evenly. And yeah, I guess we're headed back to Eisengrab. That seems to be the most convenient town. We'll just carve a line through the... Oh my goodness. A pitch-black monolith towers over the surrounding lands, emitting a baleful aura. No living being dares draw close to it. Yeah, well, you got that right, because we are giving that thing a wide berth. We are nowhere near ready for the Black Monolith. That is one of the OG legendary locations. I want to say it was all the way back in... Ironjaw's Den. See, that's a bit more reasonable. But yeah, the Black Monolith, that, I believe, was one of the original legendary locations in the first cut of the game, before all the DLC. I want to say it was essentially the original endgame challenge. You know, the potentially toughest encounter on the entire map. One last thing for the players to do once they'd tired of the rotating crises. It's been years since I last tried taking it on, but if I recall correctly, it's like 50 plus ancient dead, as well as the ancient emperor himself. So yeah, probably a bit beyond our current crew. Good to know where it is, though. In the short term, we'll focus on things I'm a bit more comfortable going up against. Ejirok feels pretty safe. Possibly the Witch's Hut, though I don't think we've actually located that one. Kraken might be a bit much. Librarian's bottom of the list. That guy's just a pain in the ass to fight. But I wouldn't say there's no chance. And I think that might be it. I'm not sure if there's any others. You folks will have to refresh my memory. Like I said, it's been a while. That's it. Sadly, we are going to have to cut it off here. I've got some other stuff I have to take care of, so sadly I don't have time for another fight, but we'll hit the pause button for now. I'll get our guys prepped, and we will pick up here next time as we continue east to Eisengrab. And then from there, perhaps the Icy Cave? I guess we'll see. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Bowman, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links
are in the description.